digital arena, on the app, on your smartphone, on X, YouTube, and Facebook. The Sportscast. Expect the unexpected.
The update presented by the Sportscast.
Welcome to the Sportscast, July 7th, 2025. If you haven't yet, please subscribe in all our channels, YouTube, Facebook, X, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You can also listen to us on your smart speaker. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a rating and a review. It will help us out tremendously. We're also on online digital radio. You can also visit our website, thesportscast.net. Also, follow us on X and Instagram at the Sportscast1 and check out our app, the Sportscast for iOS. USA versus Mexico, a match that kind of lived up to expectations, but a loss to Mexico. But before that, we got Hal Phillips join us on a July in Maine. How does that feel?
It feels hot. It feels hot to us. You're probably used to this normal day down there in South Florida, but it feels very hot to us. And I'm get the fan going here. It's just this happened 3 or 4 times a summer. Now it seems to happen for 2 weeks all summer. Things are changing.
Now, do you guys get the humidity as well?
Yeah, that's what makes the difference. It's just like South Florida. It's very, very humid. And my son lives in Montana. And I was just visiting with him, and he reminds us all the time that we live in a rainforest here in Maine, whereas, it's very, very hot, but very dry where he is. And it makes a huge difference.
Big time. No. So the U.S. yesterday lost against Mexico. Mexico beat U.S. men's national team 2-1 on Sunday in Houston to repeat as Gold Cup champions back-to-back and snap a 6-game losing streak to the Americans in official matches. The first goal came from Chris Richards, and then a little bit later on, Mexico dominated possession and corner kicks as their A team outclassed America's B team. A goal by Raul Jimenez, and so on and so on. And also Edson Alvarez scored. What was your thoughts over this match?
Well, the Gold Cup was created in 1991, basically the modern version of it. And the very first one pitted the United States against Mexico in a semifinal, and the United States won that game. And that result pretty much made the Gold Cup a thing. It exists because these are the 2 best teams in North America, and it exists because they can put it in the United States and draw a massive crowd every time Mexico plays, and certainly every time they play the United States in a final. So this was the final that everyone wanted, and it was entertaining. It was compelling, even though the U.S. sent a B team to this tournament. So hats off to Mexico. They were the better team, clearly, but they had to work real hard for it, and the U.S. Showed very well. I thought they did what they could with the pieces that were made available to them to coach Pochettino. And that's a shame in one way, because this is the last real competition, the last real pressurized situation they're going to face before the World Cup in a year. And it's, they were missing 10 players. 10 is a lot through injury, through choice to play the Club World Cup, for Juventus and Dortmund instead of the U.S. team. And just simply taking the summer off because they've had a long European season. The Mexicans showed up with their full team. They were maybe missing 1 starter, maybe 2, depending on how you view it. So they were supposed to win, and they did win. But the U.S., I thought, availed themselves very well. And any talk there might have been about Pochettino losing this team or not being committed to the program, I think goes away now, and that we can now concentrate on getting those guys back to friendly situations to build more team ethos. But this tournament went a long way towards building the Pochettino style and era that we were expecting, I guess, from the outset, but hadn't come until now.
Yeah, a lot of questions, being answered. Some are, still up in the air, of course, with roster. But let's go into the match. What was your thoughts over the first goal by Chris Richards? I thought it was a very lucky goal, in a way. It kind of like it came from a header from Chris Richards. The ball hit right behind the goal line. It made it out. But what are your thoughts over that?
Well,
he's by Berhalter.
Yeah, I think that you have to judge it as an American pundit, an American fan, in a different way. In retrospect, this goal was exactly what the U.S. needed to make this a compelling final.
Yeah.
And it took Mexico pretty much 80 minutes to get ahead. They tied it 12 minutes later, and then it was nip and tuck for another 65 minutes before Edson Alvarez put the team ahead, and that goal actually was very close to being offside itself. But how do you look at this? How do you look at this goal without thinking about the bigger picture? Chris Richards is now definitely one of the two starters for us in the middle. A month ago, we didn't know that. We didn't say, oh, of course Chris Richards is going to start next to Tim Ream or next to Miles Robinson in the middle of the field next year in the World Cup. Now he's the more obvious choice of the two. He's going to play over Ream. He played a very, very good tournament. Berhalter served the ball there, and this was a guy that we just didn't know much about at this level before this tournament. Now we do. He played really hard in this tournament and in this final, and he has the ability to serve balls like this routinely. He's got a very deft right foot when it comes to these things. But was it a lucky goal? Look, it was a difficult. It was a free kick from a dangerous position, and we got our head on it first, and it clearly went in. So it looked a bit lucky. I don't think that's fair though. But when you watch the next 40 minutes of the match, and the U.S. has 30% possession, and Mexico has 6 corners already. They finished with 11. I think you're right. Clearly, they carried the play in this match, and the U.S. had to counterpunch, and they could not do that dangerously enough to really scare Mexico into committing so many guys forward. And that is a function of the people that we brought to this tournament, even if they played well. Ajiman, the rangy striker that played by himself up top the whole game, and I thought played very creditably. Again, playing single striker by yourself against Mexico is really hard. No one was serving him the ball. I think we learned a lot about Berhalter's ability to actually feed a guy like Ajiman. In fact, if it wasn't a free kick, he couldn't do it. Our friend Diego Luna, who played so well in the quarterfinal and the semifinal, he was just worthless in this game. He was stuck out on the right wing because they couldn't contain Mexico without bringing Berhalter centrally, along with the two other guys in the midfield, Tyler Adams and the two center backs. They were all dropping to deal with all the pressure Mexico was bringing. Luna was really a non-factor in this game. So Ajiman ran by himself alone, whereas against a lesser opponent, someone like Luna gets in behind Ajiman and can really play with him. And because the one thing that Ajiman did really well, I thought, was hold up play and take those long balls, control it, and dish it off. And Malik Tillman was the other central guy who was just pulled back into a defensive role. They just could not counterpunch with this group. Could they counterpunch with Reyna and Pulisic and Weah and Musa and Weston McKennie, who were all world-class players? Yes, they could. They couldn't do that here. In a nutshell, that's why they lost this tournament. This is why they lost this final at home. And, we knew this going in. I think we talked about how frustrating it was for Pochettino. It's frustrating for me to watch Pochettino try to put this team together without 10 of his best guys. That's a lot. And they developed some young players that might be useful to them in a year, but it's icing on the Mexican cake at that point. You have to give it to them. They were better, and they won the match.
Way better match. I thought this was the only tough game in the Gold Cup. I think that's an argument to make. This is the World Cup level that we will feel which is from a year from now. Pochettino and the players were criticizing the referee howl over the referee of the match. They felt they should have had a penalty on this handball you see on the screen that wasn't called, and that Mexico's winning goal should have been disallowed for offside. How do you think about the officiating? And was this a handball?
Yes, it's a handball. There's an obscure rule that says that, if you use your hand as a brace, like to go down for a tackle or to get up, or if you're not looking at the ball and you have your arm down, the ball hits it, it's not a handball. This is clearly a handball. He's looking right at it. His hand is right on it. And you say, well, he needs to brace himself. Why? So he doesn't fall 2 feet onto a bed of grass? Look, it's awkward, and maybe he couldn't get his hand out of the way, but it was an act of will. It was not reflexive. He's not like trying to pull his arm in to make it, part of his body. His arm is away from his body and it lands on the ball. It was quite amazing to me that it was not called. Pochettino came out and said that if that had happened at the other end, it was tied 1-1, as you could see from the chyron there. There's no way that call doesn't get made in front of 90% Mexican fandom in the Houston NRG Stadium. I guess it's a capacity of 72,000. So very small American contingent, and we can get to that. But yeah. That's a handball, and that would have changed the match. Obviously, it's late in the game, later in the game, and it would have probably would have sent the game into overtime, because I didn't think Mexico was going to score two goals against us.
Exactly. Goals change the games.
Yeah, goals change games, and that's just the way it is. I thought that in general, this guy Escobar, who I believe is he Salvadoran?
The referee.
Yeah, he's good. He's a good referee.
I will double check on that, but keep going.
I've seen him a lot, in CONCACAF. He works in Liga MX, doing Champions Cup matches. He's very good, but I've
seen him before. Yeah, you're right. He's from Guatemala, correct?
Oh, Guatemala. Sorry. He's good. He's a good referee, but he was definitely they just manhandled this poor Ajiman, the U.S. striker, in the back. And look, he's the one guy running against 4 guys, but they were just hanging on. They could have called a foul every time Ajiman got anywhere near the ball. And I hope it makes Ajiman a better player, because it's got to be. I've been there. I've run up top on myself. It really wears you down, and they just couldn't get in there to support him with more than 1 or 2 guys. They couldn't get behind him. He held the ball up well. He didn't do much else because he was whacked. He was able to get the possession a little bit, but just not enough. There's just not. So you get Tillman in behind him. There were a couple of times when he got the ball on a long ball, Ajiman did, and was able to dish it back to Tillman or to Luna or to Berhalter. And they just couldn't turn that. They couldn't turn that into offensive output. They couldn't get up behind them. They were all so deep. The other thing that I noticed in this game, I think a lot of people said, oh, well, they gave the ball away too much. And that's true. We didn't have the possession we needed. Where we didn't have the possession was our defense, which played very stoutly. They won balls all the time, but they could not possess the ball once they had won it. They were so happy to get a foot on it and, to flick it away. We never gathered that resulting ball. They kicked it too far. They get a head on it, and they're just heading it upfield. They're not finding the guy over there to the left or the right. And when you watch the Mexican defenders, who were under, not the same pressure, but pressure like anyone is, they always found they had the poise. They had the skill and the poise on the ball that when they took it from our advances, they possessed it as a result. We couldn't do that. And, a lot of that is, a young guy like Max Arfsten, who has never played in a match this big in his life. The 2 center backs were very experienced, Ream and Richards. But Freeman played well, but couldn't step in there and take the ball away and hold it or find Adams. Even Tyler Adams, I thought, was loose with the ball in this game. When he won it, he was able to get it, but he couldn't keep it. And if he was just got a foot in, he couldn't find a teammate with that win. That was frustrating to me, because I thought Tyler Adams was the one guy who, once he did get it, wasn't afraid to push it forward and counter. The other ones got it. Oh boy, they held the ball, went back with it, tried to possess it. There was no counter. There was no offensive momentum in this game once we got it. And, that is what it's like when you're playing the B team against the A team. You're not thinking about going forward. You're thinking about getting it and relieving the pressure.
Yeah, we had a lot of giveaways. So the World Cup is in a year from now. How I could safely say Reem and Adams and Richards are the three that most likely will be in this roster
Mhm.
a year from now for the World Cup. Who do you think will make it and crack that roster? Doesn't have to be the starting lineup, but it could be in the bench or in the starting lineup.
Well, Tillman, I think, is definitely on the roster and could start. I think he is a particularly attacking player that basically replaces someone like Reyna, who no matter who he plays for, the manager doesn't seem to want to play. And I would guess that that's because he does not play anything but forward going. He's a great possession player. He's really got a nose for the ball and a creativity going forward. But for some reason, every manager, not just Greg Berhalter, but his manager at Dortmund, his manager at Nottingham Forest, they just don't want to play the guy. And he's either really annoying or he just won't play defense. And it's hard for us to see that as mere mortals. But he's definitely on the team. I like Tillman because he does what Reyna does, and he's bigger, stronger, and faster. Ajiman might get a roster spot. I don't see him playing. He's literally our fourth or fifth best striker at this point. When you really get down to it, I love that he got this experience, but he's not going anywhere. I see Luna. I thought he was a little exposed in this game. When he's not in the middle of the field in that spot right behind where Tillman is playing, when he's not directly behind the striker and he really has to track back and he has to play outside, which he did a lot in this game, he's exposed as someone who is determined defensively, but just not big enough, strong enough, or fast enough. He does not have the wheels. In the middle of the field, all you got to do is take it and reverse direction. You can be quick and have a real impact on the game. But when you have to be playing space, he does not have the wheels. I think Max Arfston is a guy we might see. I think he's probably better than Joe Scally, for example. He just goes forward with a real confidence. And if he can figure out how to play, defense at the left back position, he is someone who could be on the roster. But there's no way he's playing over Dest or Anthony Robinson at the outside left back position. Freeman, another player that might get a spot, but he's not going to start. They would go to three in the back before they played, an outside back like Freeman. And then you're able to pack the midfield with more guys and we have a ton of them. Musa, McKennie, Johnny Cardoso. These guys can all play in the middle of the field, and that's really where our strength is. And I think that when we can mass them with five in the middle of the field instead of four, or 2 and 1, a triangle with two guys out, that's what we want. And I think that's where we have depth. Ajiman, there's no, he might make the roster, but he's not going to play. Balogun and
I think Balogun and Pepe have that secure.
Exactly. You could even start the two of them and let them run together and serve the ball to them long, and they would get under them.
Bring back the 4-4-2, Al.
Yeah, they might do that. That lets them play four in the middle in a more of a diamond shape where they have the most depth. So we'll see what happens. But look, I mean, we keep saying it sounds like an excuse. When you don't have your 10 guys, they're not only one of them. I think Josh Sargent is on the Robinson chose to get knee surgery. It was a minor surgery. So there were two guys that chose. Dest is coming back from an injury. These are legitimate reasons not to go to this tournament. The other 7, choice. And, Reyna didn't even play for Borussia Dortmund at this World Cup. And I don't think Tim Weah played at this Club World Cup. So why not play for your country? I can't believe they wouldn't do that. I think Weah got caught trying to impress the club at Juventus that he was committed to them. And then they almost traded him, or he almost signed away to Nottingham Forest. And now
that didn't work out.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen there. It was awkward, but purely from a selfish national team standpoint, those guys would have made a massive difference. There's talent on this team. It's just a shame we didn't see, 2/3 of it in this tournament.
Yeah, that's something that I was, they've been talking about. But how would you grade Pochettino in this tournament?
I'll give him a B+ because I think he took a group of guys that is not that good and made them believe and made them cohesive. And he was brave in that he gave all these young guys a real chance. Max Arfston plays for Columbus Crew, and I've seen him play some MLS matches and some Champions Cup matches. Decent young player. I've seen him go forward a little bit. I was impressed with him. I think he can do some stuff going forward that I didn't think that many MLS players could do. Taking people on in the box, getting those shots away, scoring a great goal, and I think it was the quarterfinals. Pochettino's the guy who gets credit for that. And if someday Agamon, who has been rumored to go to the British second division team Derby, English I should say, if he turns into a player, Pochettino's going to get some credit because he stuck with him. He put him in there when no one else would. Of course, they had very few options. And they went with this kid, and I think he grew by leaps and bounds. Some friends of mine thought that he was just not strong enough in this game, but geez, I would like them to look at the totality of his encounters with the center backs, Montez and Juarez for Mexico. He just got butchered all game, and that wears you down. And he can't run by people, because he's exhausted, but. I'm trying hard to think of where he had a chance to run by anybody in this game. He just really didn't, because there was nobody serving him the ball when he didn't have his back to goal.
Yeah, quite something. We'll see what happens. The next 2 games in September, is against South Korea and Japan.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think this roster? Do you think this roster Pochettino is going to select is going to be an indicator of what the World Cup roster will be?
Well, I think those are 2 interesting, skilled opponents, not first grade, top-notch opponents, but they're good. The most interesting thing for me will be who is pulled into camp and who shows up. That's, September is, I guess, 6 weeks into the club season, and a good many of the guys we've been talking about who didn't play in the Gold Cup will be available. I don't think Pochettino will shun them, but they've got to come in and earn a spot. And I think that someone like Tillman makes it harder for all of those midfielders that we talked about who are so talented to say no or to find a reason. Clubs are famously persnickety when it comes to letting, their talent go. But, a lot of these players are good players for good clubs. They're not stars. So they're not going to get denied, I wouldn't think. It's going to be very difficult for a club like Juventus to deny Weston McKennie a chance to go play for his national team in an international window in a World Cup year. So they're going to get a chance. They're going to be asked, and they're going to show up. I hope they're healthy, and I hope that they play well for this coach. He's waited. He's been patient. He said all the right things publicly. So when those 7 or 8 guys are called in, someone like Balogun, and I hope they show up. And I hope they're fit enough to show up.
They probably have to show up if they want to play in the World Cup.
If they want to play in the World Cup, they'd better. Otherwise, Reyna, for example. I'll play Tillman right now over Reyna, as much as I admire Reyna as a player.
Easily. I don't think he'll get called up Reyna for September.
It's what's the phrase? Once burned, twice reproved. You just don't. How many times do we have to see this guy sort of bail on his team? And I don't know. He's a difficult. He's still 23 years old or something like that. Maybe he's 24 by now. It's just a very young guy with loads of talent that gets to a place like Dortmund, but does's play.
There's something going on behind the scenes, like you were saying. Might be his attitude, his temperament. Who knows?
It's hard to believe that his attitude is that bad after his experience at the World Cup, where he was really made to look a fool. And they just didn't play him and ended up advancing to the round of 16 and putting the fear of God into the Netherlands, a game that I would encourage anybody to go watch again if they've really got sort of Beerhalter derangement syndrome. That was a very good performance from the United States against an excellent opponent that nearly took down the World Cup champion Argentinians. And they got along just fine without him. And once that happens and you don't, come back, why would anyone forget all the BS that happened afterwards between the Reynas and the Beerhalters and the Federation? After that, you have a new coach who comes in. Why wouldn't you be there on, here, hands and knees at the camps, getting a game against Turkey? And getting, games for your country in a Gold Cup. I find it amazing that Reyna in particular didn't want to participate in this tournament, because it's his chance at redemption, literally, with a new coach, to show him what he can do. I mean, imagine if they could have played Tillman and Reyna and Ajiman in that threesome up top. Just a very, very different prospect. Quality matters.
Yeah, big time. We'll see what happens. Couple of months, about a month and a half till the September friendly. So a lot to look forward to. 1 year ahead to the World Cup. NBA news: how Clippers, Jazz, and Heat have agreed to a trade that sends Norman Powell to Miami, John Collins to Los Angeles, and Kevin Love, Kyle Anderson, and a 2027 Clippers second round pick to the Jazz. What do you think about this move?
I don't know. If Kevin Love is involved, it's probably not too consequential. I guess Miami got a good player. I like Norman Powell. But, Miami's going nowhere. And I don't think anyone knows, what that roster is going to look like in October. But whatever it looks like, it's not going to be very good. There's so many other did that just happen today?
About an hour ago, 2 hours ago.
Well, good. You're on it. That's good reporting. It's timely news, but there's way bigger stuff that's been going on in the NBA on sightings.
Celtics and the Pacers don't have their stars, so it's pretty much a gap year for you guys.
Yeah, it is. And it makes the East wide open. I think the Knicks are licking their chops. They've got
Mike Brown last week.
Mike Brown is now the coach. Has been made official?
It's not official, but it's like 88% official.
Yeah, I think there was a joke that they had gone back to Thibodeau and said, "Hey, maybe you're interested in," but I think that was just aggregators making trouble. The East is as wide open as it's been in a long time. I mean, a team like Detroit could they've picked up some really nice help. That team could win 50 games and be a factor. The Knicks are going to be a factor. People don't seem to think that the Celtics can win 50 games with the team they have now. I think they can. Jaylen Brown is an all-star. He's a very, very good player, and Derek White is a very good player. And I love Anthony Simons for them. He's going to score a ton if they don't deal him. So I wish they'd kept Luke Cornett, and I don't know why we keep holding on to Al Horford, who I'm amazed has not signed. But the Lakers or somebody like that, because he probably has another year in him. But it's sort of good for basketball in the East. There are some young teams that are going to be able to do some damage and win some games, and it's not going to be a foregone conclusion. But I feel bad for the Pacers, who played so valiantly. They lose their star.
To the Bucks,
which happens in this game. It happened to the Celtics. But then Miles Turner goes off to Milwaukee, and now they're looking at they're probably just bleary. They're like, what happened? Wait, what? This was going to be our conference to win, and now we got nothing. In the mid, at halftime of Game 7, they're like, this is a team that's going to be trouble for everyone for the next 2 or 3 years. Now everything is not destroyed, but thrown into question.
Quite something. And Damian Lillard, he got waived by the Bucks, so we'll see where he goes.
Yeah, I guess that's interesting. We've talked about Lillard. I just don't think that he's a winning player. I think he's a stat guy, and now he's the 36-year-old stat guy.
Yeah, he's peaked.
On the right team, I think he could be really useful. For example, if he went to Detroit, you don't think they could use him off the bench to run the team and just drain threes for 20 minutes a game? But is he ready to accept that? The problem with Lillard is that he's always thought of himself as an all NBA first, second team player, a star. And I don't know that he ever really delivered more than points, when it comes to that, and for teams that weren't very good. And so now he's in a situation where, like Iverson was, where it's like, will he do that? Will he sublimate his idea of himself to help a team, get that last piece in place? I mean, what if he was in Denver? Denver's done some really interesting things. What if he took less money and went to Denver to play with Jokic? That would get my attention. That would tell me that Dame Lillard wants to win.
That could be a championship contending team for sure.
Dame Lillard wanted to go to Miami because I guess he likes it in Miami.
Which he could still go.
He could still, but he's not going to go to Miami to win, even before he hurt himself. He went to Milwaukee and didn't like it. And I thought, he went to Milwaukee and everyone said, wow, that's probably the best place for him to win. I don't think Dame cares about winning.
No, don't think so.
He cares about this. It's time to win, Dame. It's time to win.
And we got a tournament that we need to find a winner for the Club World Cup semifinal in New York. Fluminense versus Chelsea. Who do you got for that match, Al?
I'm rooting for Fluminense, but I think Chelsea will probably win, and then it'll probably be a Chelsea PSG final.
Ooh, there you go. He predicted PSG over Madrid. PSG, who just won the Champions League. Madrid's looking good without Mbappe, but we'll see if they'll start Mbappe or not.
Different sort of team that we're used to seeing from Real, and younger, quicker, and not everybody is there for them, but they clearly want to win. I mean, the South American clubs have made this tournament. They really wanted to win these games, even in the group stage against European clubs. These are the clubs we have to remember that, basically give up their talent, to the European clubs, for a price tag. And they create this talent. They get these kids when they're 12 and turn them into great players before they go off and play for Real and PSG. So Brazil, I mean, we were at a party on 4th of July, and a young woman who's my kids grew up with, her husband is Brazilian. I'm like, where's Mateus? And she's like, are you kidding me? Palmeiras is playing all across this country. He's been following them for 2 weeks. So they showed up and all over those South American countries, and the fan bases, I think, really made this tournament a success on 2 levels. They filled stadiums and they put some fight in these games and gave them the group stage meaning. And in a week where 72,000 people showed up for the Gold Cup final and 65,000 of them were Mexicans, we can see how important that is.
Quite something. Semifinal this Tuesday and Wednesday for the Club World Cup. Then the finale, PSG versus Chelsea, right? Not Fluminense.
That's my call, but I'm rooting for Fluminense.
And PSG is going to win it all, no matter what.
Why wouldn't they? They're the best team in the world.
Best team with Dembele and the gang. What you ask for more? What is the best way to reach you online?
You can reach me at gen0.halphillips.net. That's my book site. The new book, Sibling Rivalry, comes out in January, but we'll be writing about it at that site between now and the winter when the book is out. Also, you can get me at gen0.halphillips on Threads and Instagram.
We'll see if USA plays again against Mexico by the World Cup.
Where?
That's a good question. We'll find out.
It'll be on a neutral field in North America, and I don't know if there are neutral fields in America when it comes to US-Mexico.
Mexico has never been to a quarterfinal except when they hosted a World Cup in 86 and 1970. So we'll see if they repeat it for 2026.
We should say, too, this is not a great Mexico team, and the Mexicans know it. And so they're very pleased that they were able to win this tournament in America, where the Gold Cup is always held, and they get great support. So I'm happy for them. It's been a very tough summer and spring for Mexicans and Central Americans all over North America. So I applaud them. They deserve to win. And next summer, let's hope it's different.
You can reach us at thesportscast.net or the Sportscast1 on X and Instagram. We'll be live tweeting throughout the semifinal and the final of the Club World Cup. Well, Hal, appreciate you coming on to the Sportscast.
Always my pleasure, Santi. Cheers.
And this was your